Hello and welcome. You're now looking at leadpages.com, and Leadpages is the kind of tool that you're going to need in order to execute the things that we will be discussing in Sales Funnel Playbook. And you'll need this kind of tool in order to easily build sales and opt-in pages. Now, you will not necessarily rely on building an entire website in order to execute a sales funnel. In fact, you can use a tool like ClickFunnels, if you already have it, in order to build the pages that you will be using. It's possible that you already have a WordPress website, and if that's the case, you can add on a tool to your WordPress website in order to build pages there. There are tools such as Optimize that build pages from your WordPress website. And you can use free tools that do the same thing, such as Elementor. Now, some website builders also have the same kind of tools, such as Wix or Squarespace. If you can find those tools and you find them usable, you can use them on your existing website platform. But for the sake of this course, the most important thing is that you are able to build pages with the structure that we are going to be talking about in mind. We will be working with an older version of Optimize in order to do that. So what we're going to do inside of our WordPress website is first, we're going to update our WordPress website. Once our WordPress website is updated, what we're going to do is we're going to add in the page builder, and we're going to do that by installing a WordPress plugin. Now, what's important to note here is not the type of plugin or even the name of the plugin. What's going to be important here is that you walk through the structure of what we're going to do in this course to set up your sales funnel. So that being said, if you have a page building plugin, you want to set it up on your WordPress website. If you are paying for a platform, you want to have it available. And if you're using a website platform, you're going to want to be able to build a specific sales page. So we're going to stop this video right here, and we're going to pick it up in the next video from installing the plugin on our WordPress website. Welcome back. Now we're choosing to use our existing WordPress website, and in order to do that, we're going to install the Optimize plugin. Now once again, to emphasize the fact that the features of the page builder are not as important as the structure we're going to be going through. As a result, we're going to be using an older version of Optimize. Now, we're going to start the process by uploading the plugin to our WordPress website. We're going to do that by going to the plugins, and we're going to click Add New. What we're then going to do is we're going to add the plugin to our WordPress installation system. Once we've added it, we're then going to click Install Now. In some cases, when you go through this simple process, you are going to get an error message. What that's going to mean is that you're going to need to install the plugin manually using your FTP or your control panel for your website. So what we're now going to do is go to our file manager. We're going to go into our public HTML. We're going to go inside of our WordPress content folder, and we're then going to go inside of our plugin area. What we're now going to do is we're going to upload our plugin to this area using our control panel. Once we do that, we're now going to extract this plugin. And we're going to click Extract Files. We'll then close the dialog box. We'll then refresh our page by clicking F5. We should now see our plugin available. We can now delete this plugin. We should now be able to go back to our WordPress website. We're now going to go back one page. What we're now going to do is go to our Install Plugins. We should now see our Optimize plugin. We're then going to activate that plugin. Now, because this is a paid plugin, we do need to have our Optimize API key. What we're going to do is we're going to go to the plugin itself. We're then going to place in our API key, and we're going to click Save Settings. And we are now at the point at which you are going to be regardless of what page builder you have, you should have some level of template available to you. In this case, you're looking at the templates available on OptimizePress. You should have some level of thank you page available to you in order for you to optimize for your offers. You should have some level of sales page available to you. You may want to even have a webinar page available to you. And then you should also have something like a blank page where you can create something from scratch. And you will have these kinds of tools available to you from lead pages, from something like Builderall, from ClickFunnels, and in a limited case from Elementor. And so regardless of what tool you've chosen to use, we are now ready to begin the process of building out a sales funnel. Welcome back. Now the first part of your funnel, you're going to need to set up an opt-in page. And what this is going to do is this is going to give your customers the opportunity to become part of your email marketing list. And you probably have a number of templates available to you in order to use. Some of them will have a video that you can use. Others will have just text and something representing some kind of graphic. Now we're going to look at the most complex one, which is going to be a template with some kind of video and perhaps even some kind of graphic. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose a template, and we're going to choose this one. And in OptimizePress, what you're going to do is give your page a name. You're typically going to have to do this in whatever system that you're using. We're now going to create our page. Now you're going to see a few customizable elements here on this very simple opt-in page, and you're going to see this regardless of what system you're using. You're going to be able to change your headline. You're going to be able to change your subheadline. You're going to be able to leave some kind of video. Now in the case of OptimizePress, this video already has a player. If you don't have this inside of your page builder, you're going to need to either use an embed link with a player, or you're going to have a video player. You're also going to need to customize your opt-in page. And the customer will then click the button in order to be taken to a thank you page where the next part of the process is going to be. Now one of the things you'll notice in OptimizePress is that you have, in some cases, extra text which could be a distraction for your buyer and your prospect. You're also going to have copyright information, and you really should have some kind of privacy policy and terms of service. So we're going to start with this process, and we're going to start by taking out this content here at the bottom, which is going to be a distraction from our prospect seeing what we want them to see. And in OptimizePress, what that means is going inside of the layout settings and turning off for now these footer area, then updating. What you're going to notice now is that this content is no longer available here on this footer. Now we do want to have a privacy policy in terms of service. So we're going to stop this video at this point, and we're going to save the page that we have created. And what we're then going to do is we're going to set up our privacy policy. We're then going to set up our terms. We're going to come back and make sure that they appear here in the footer. So we're going to save this page, and we're going to go on to create our terms and privacy page. Welcome back. Now in many cases, the sales page builder you're using or the platform you're using has a privacy policy that is a stock page that you can modify. If you're using a WordPress website, you can typically use some kind of plugin where you can create a page for your site and then modify it. So assuming that that's what you are doing, we're going to go to this plugins area, and what we're then going to do is we're going to click Add New Plugin. What we can then do is when we search the plugins, we can write in privacy policy. And you'll typically see plugins that will allow you to create a privacy policy for your website. And of course, you're then going to link to them from your opt-in page. Now you're going to want to choose the one that you feel is going to be most representative of what it is that you want to do. In some cases, you can tell this by the reviews. In other cases, you can tell this from reputation. Now, once again, if your platform already has a privacy policy, you can use that one and then adapt it for what it is that you are doing. Now, for the sake of this video, we are going to choose this one from WPICA Club. We're going to click Install Now. Now, just so that you'll note, every plugin and every addition is going to work differently. What we're going to do is we're going to go inside of this individual plugin, and they are requiring us to accept the terms of use. We're going to accept them. Now, this plugin requires us to enter our details in order to work with it. We're going to go ahead and work through this process. We're then going to click Save. And we're now going to create the 2 pages that we are going to need. Now, you are using a template in order to do this, regardless of which plugin or which system you're using. This will not represent any legal protection. You'll want to make sure that your privacy policy reflects your business, and depending on what you're doing, you may even want to consult with a legal professional. What we're doing right now is we are going through the process and we are undertaking the structural process. We've now created a privacy policy page. What we're now going to do is we're going to create a terms of use page. So once again, you're going to want to make sure that you read through the terms, that you determine if you're going to need some kind of legal counsel. You're going to want to make sure that this reflects your business and what it is you're doing. Once you've done that, you can then click Publish. Now, if we're working with WordPress, we're going to go inside of our pages. You're going to notice here that we have a privacy policy page and a terms of use page. What we're going to do is we're going to grab this page. We're going to get the link. We're going to copy it and now head back to our page. What we want to do now is we want to edit our footer area, and we want to make sure that our pages are going to be seen in this footer area. So we're going to stop the video here, and we're going to pick it up from altering our footer area with our terms of service as well as our privacy policy. Welcome back. What we're going to do is go inside of our layout settings. We're going to turn on our footer area. And you'll notice here that what we're going to be doing is we're going to be relying on the existing WordPress footer navigation. So what we need to do is we need to create a footer navigation so that we can grab it from these settings. So we're going to close up these settings. And in fact, what we're going to do is close up the entire page. What we're then going to do is we're going to go to the appearance. We're then going to go to our menus. What we're now going to do is we're going to create a specific footer menu. We're then going to click Create Menu. What we're now going to do is we're going to add pages to that specific menu. And so what we're going to do is we're going to find our terms of use page, our privacy policy page, and we're going to add them to the menu. We now have these pages as part of our menu. We're now going to save that menu. What we're now going to do is head back to our page. We're going to go back to our page and edit it. We're then going to edit our opt-in page. What we're then going to do is to go back inside of our layout settings. We're then going to go inside of our footer area. What we're then going to do is we're going to choose a specific navigation. We're going to choose the navigation that we just created. What we're then going to do is click Update. What we now need to do is to go back and we need to turn on our footer navigation in our footer area. We're now going to click Update. You'll then see that our privacy policy and our terms of use appear at the bottom of our opt-in page. What we then want to do is just make sure that we have our website correct. We can do that inside of the Optimize Press settings. So we're going to go inside of Optimize Press. We're then going to go inside of our dashboard. We're then going to go inside of our site footer. You're going to notice here that we have this information here. Now you can either edit this information or you can take it out altogether. We're going to choose to leave it in, and we're then going to click Save Settings. Now, it's important to note that this process is going to be slightly different depending on what platform that you are using. However, the steps are steps that you do want to take. You want to make sure that your copyright appears correctly. You also want to make sure that your terms of service and your privacy policy appear in the footer of your opt-in page. So what we can now do is to go back to our page, go back to all pages, and we can now look at our opt-in page. You'll see here now that our content appears correctly. What we can now do is we can now move on to the other elements of our opt-in page. And to do so, we will pick it up in the next video. Welcome back. Now, assuming that you have the headline that you want and the subheadline that you want, what you're going to want to do is place a video here in your opt-in page. And in this case, in Optimized Press, if we were to edit this page, what we will notice is that Optimized Press is going to be asking for a YouTube video. You can also add in an embed code from another video host, or you can have a URL as long as that URL contains an MP4 video. There are a few other formats here depending on what your host does. Now, in most cases, you are going to have your video autoplay, and inside of this area, you can actually indicate that in Optimized Press. We're going to look at two cases. First, what we're going to look to is YouTube. And if we're going to place a YouTube link here with our video, what we're going to do is we're going to come down and we're going to click the autoplay button. We'll then click Insert. That means then that what we'll need to do with this page is to save it. And then we'll then be able to view the preview page. And you'll see that that video auto plays. Now what we can also do is we can place a video with just an embed link from a video host. And that's going to require an embed code. Now for this case, what we're going to do is we're going to grab an embed code from Vimeo.com. We're going to place that embed code in the dialog box. What you're going to notice here is that there is no autoplay code. So in Vimeo, there is a specific autoplay code for the embed. Now, whatever your video host is, you may have to find the exact process. In this case, you'll notice that we have done a search. We've written in autoplay Vimeo embed in order to find exact instructions on how to embed and then autoplay the embed on our opt-in page. So what we're going to do here is we're going to follow those instructions and we're going to write in some additional code. And once we've done that, we can then click Insert. Now in Optimized Press, that means then we'll have to save it. We'll then be able to preview the new link. And we can see our video autoplays on our opt-in page. So we now have the second element on our opt-in page. And what we now need to do is we need to make sure that we can opt in to our email marketing list from our actual page. So what we're going to do is stop the video here and we're going to pick it up from working with our opt-in. Welcome back. Now, depending on which kind of page builder you're using, you are going to want to connect your autoresponder to that page builder by default. And you want to do that so you'll be able to integrate into the forms that you're using on your pages. So what we're going to do with the page that we are working on as an opt-in is we're going to click Save and Continue and make sure it's saved. We're then going to close this page. What we are then going to do is we're going to go into our page builder. Now again, this works whether your page builder is WordPress based or it is cloud based. We're going to go into our builder and we're going to go into the builder dashboard. What we're then going to do is go into our email marketing services. Now you'll notice here that this particular page builder, which is Optimized Press, will connect with several different kinds of autoresponder services. Now for the sake of this video, we're going to choose one autoresponder service and connect to it. Now, each autoresponder service connects differently to this page builder and will connect differently with your page builder. So for example, if you were to choose one shopping cart, you'll see that there is a connection point. You'll see that if you want to connect with Aweber, that the connection will be based on the link you click and will be different from the other connections. We are going to use GetResponse in order to connect. So we're going to click on this link, and what you're going to notice is that this connection requires that we get the API key from within GetResponse, which is individual to our account. And so we'll go into our integrations. We'll click on the API integration. Once we have the key from within GetResponse, we're going to put it inside of this dialog box. We're going to come down and then save our settings. And now our settings have been updated. That means then that we can use them within our pages. So we're going to go back to our pages, and we're going to go back to the page we are working on. And what we're going to do is we're going to go inside of this particular opt-in box, and we're going to edit the opt-in box. What we're then going to do is we're going to integrate with GetResponse. And so we're going to use the drop-down box here. We're going to choose the GetResponse autoresponder. We're then going to choose one of the individual lists from within our autoresponder. Now you'll notice here with this particular opt-in box, GetResponse allows you to individualize two different pages. You can individualize a thank you page URL. You can also individualize an already subscribed page URL. Now to do this, you can enable or create a thank you page. So what we're going to do here is we're going to stop the process here because we do want to have a thank you page. So we're going to click Insert here, and we're going to click Save and Continue. And we're then going to close out of the opt-in page. And what we're now going to do is we're going to create a thank you page so that when the person opts in, they're going to see a specific page of our choosing. Now in most cases, you will have that option when you are working inside of a page builder. In some cases, you may not have that option, but whenever you have it, you want to use it. So what we're going to do is we're going to stop the video here, and we're going to pick it up by creating a thank you page in the next video. Welcome back. Now we're going to create and connect a thank you page. And to do that, we're going to come back to our templates. In many cases, you will have a template that you have available to create your thank you page. What we're going to do is we're going to click Create New Page. And we're going to use one of the existing templates inside of OptimizePress. Again, you will use the page builder that you have in order to use the template to create a thank you page. We're going to find our thank you pages, and we're going to choose the one that we want. Now in most cases, the one that you want to use is one that will give people an indication that they do need to check their email box. We're going to click Use this template, and we're going to give this page a name. We're then going to click Create Page. And then we're going to start working with our page. Now we can customize this page by putting our logo and all the other information here. We're going to want to make sure that the copy is accurate to what the person is going to be getting when they subscribe. The part that you want the person to see is going to be this message that they're going to see, and they're going to be checking for their confirmation email. And what you want to make sure is that the email that is going to be sent to them will actually say what this message is going to be. So that means then you may need to check your autoresponder so that you can determine what the confirmation email is going to say. And then whatever information that they're going to be getting, you want to make sure that you give them a preview of what that information is going to be. Now another thing that you can do naturally is you can put a link to an offer on this page, or you can make this thank you page an offer. What we want to do is to make sure that the person confirms their email and becomes part of our email marketing list. So we're going to then make this a published page, and then we're going to get the public link. And then we're going to take that link and we're going to head back to our opt-in page. So we're going to find our page. We're going to come back to the opt-in box. And what we're going to do now is we're going to put in our thank you page URL. And what we're now going to do is we're going to click Insert. What we now want to do is we want to publish our page and we want to test the process. So we're going to move this page to Published. And what we're then going to do is we're going to view our public link. What we're now going to do is we're going to enter our email address and our name. And we're then going to click the button. And we actually have happening what we want to happen. What we now need to do is we need to make sure that we have an email to confirm and that also we have been added to our autoresponder. And we will pick it up from that point in the next video. Welcome back. We are now inside of the autoresponder that we are using. And for the sake of this video, what we're using is GetResponse, and we are verifying now that the email that we used is now inside of our autoresponder and working correctly. Now, when it comes to your autoresponder, there are a few things that you're going to want to make sure that you do have set. Now, your autoresponder may not look like this one because this is GetResponse. However, you are going to want to make sure that you set your double opt-in settings to confirm unless you have a good reason for not doing so. In some cases, you may find it more appropriate not to have the customer to confirm their subscription. However, you want to check the default settings to determine if the customer is going to get an email in their box to confirm before they become part of your email marketing list. Now, if that customer does have to confirm, you are typically going to have a choice. You're going to either be able to send them to a confirmation page created by the autoresponder company, or you can have them sent to a custom URL. In that case, you are going to indicate that, and then you're going to write in that URL here. Now, for the sake of your sales funnel and to maximize revenue, one of the things that you can do is you can have this person sent to the offer that you're going to be promoting. And it's a good way for you to get people to see an actual offer. So this is a key benefit. So this is a benefit of being able to have someone confirm their subscription. They will have to confirm, and you can have that person directed to an email marketing list. In addition, a double opt-in subscriber is considered to be a higher quality subscriber by the email service provider. Now, if you choose not to have the individual confirm their subscription, one of the things that you can do to show them an offer right away is to come back to the opt-in area. And if you recall, one of the things that we did was we had this individual sent to a thank you page where it was explained to them to check their email. If you choose not to have the individual confirm their subscription, you can have the offer placed in this thank you page URL area, as well as the already subscribed page URL area. For example, let's assume that the offer that we are promoting or the sales page that we want people to see once they opt in is going to be leadpages.com. And we place that URL here in this box. And then we said that if the individual is already part of our list, we want them to still be sent to that page. What we would do then is write that in. We would then click Insert. We're then going to save that to our opt-in page system. So what we want to do now is we want to look at the public link. And what we're going to do now is we're going to put an email address in and then a name. And then we click Get Instant Access. And what you'll notice then is that the person is then going to be sent to the offer that we have set up once they opt in. And what we see then is that that individual is then added to our email marketing list even though they have not confirmed. We had a single opt-in system applied, and so as soon as the individual wrote their name and email address, they became part of our email marketing list. And so these are going to be the considerations that you're going to want to make before you set up your opt-in page. Welcome back. Now we're going to assume that what you have is you're going to be setting up your thank you page, and we're going to need to set up an already subscribed page URL. So you will have to need to assume that you already have this individual on your email marketing list, but that they are already subscribed. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that this individual then is sent to the offer that you want them to see. Now what you could do is you could create a page for those that are already subscribed and then place a link there on that page to the offer that you want them to see. However, if the individual is already in your database, it's a good idea to send them directly to that offer. So what we're now going to do is we're going to click Insert. And we're going to click Save and Continue. So what we've done now is we've assumed that the individual is now part of our list. What we need to do is we need to set up a sales page. So we're going to come back and we're going to use our page builder in order to create a sales page. And we are going to go to the sales page section. And what we're going to do is we're going to set up a specific sales page. And we're going to give our sales page a name. Now what you're going to do obviously is you're going to be writing in the copy on your sales page and making sure that your sales message is what you want it to be. However, for the sake of your funnel, there are a few things that you want to do to make sure that all of the loops are going to be closed. One thing you are going to want to make sure that will be part of your sales page will be your terms of use and your privacy policy. In some cases, these will be defaulted on your sales page in your template. If they're not, you are going to want to take some time to place them either in the header, or in most cases, it's more commonly used that these two items will be in the footer. The one thing you're going to want to assume is that the individuals that come to your page may have a question that they will want to have answered before they choose to buy. If that's the case, you're going to want to make prominent a support link where a potential customer can ask you a pre-sale question. You're now looking at Freshdesk, which is a support system that you can set up for free. Now obviously with Freshdesk what you can do is you can upgrade when you need more features. However, there is a free getting started package. You can also set up a support system using Zendesk at zendesk.com, which has a free trial. You can also set up using Zoho Desk. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure that it's going to be visible on your page. In this case, we're going to use Optimized Press to place this someplace on the page near the bottom. And so basically what you have here now is you do have a page where an individual can click in order to get questions answered. Welcome back. Now inside of most page building systems, you have the ability to set up what's called an exit pop. And that basically means that when an individual leaves your sales page, you can have them look at another page or another offer. And what this does is this helps you to close the loop on some of the customers who may make it to your sales page but then decide for some reason they don't want to take you up on your offer. Now in every page system, this is going to work differently. So you'll want to search your individual page directions to find out how you do an exit redirect or an exit pop. We're going to go inside of Optimized Press, and it works inside of their page settings. And you're going to see here that there's a link called Exit Redirect. What we can do here is we can open up the Exit Redirect. And basically what this says is that when an individual leaves the page, we can then redirect them to a specific URL. You can have that URL to be some kind of free offer so that they can opt into your email marketing list, or you can have that individual directed to another offer. It really is your choice. Now for the sake of this video, we are going to place in here a URL that we want them to see. Now what we can do is we can write in a message that the individual will see before they are redirected to a specific page. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to write in a message. Once we do this, we're going to want to turn this on in Optimized Press. And now what's going to happen is when the individual leaves this page, they're going to see a message and then be redirected. We're now going to click Update. And now in Optimize Press, we're going to click Save and Continue. What we're now going to do is we're going to view the public link. Now the individual is going to see the page. They can then click to leave. If they choose Cancel, they're then going to be sent to our redirect page. So once you understand the behavior of your page builder, you'll want to cue the message in ways that you want it to be. Welcome back. Now that a person goes to your sales page and they make a purchase, they're then going to be taken to someplace to get the product or to a thank you page in order to set up their membership. And so the next thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to create and set up a thank you page for the sales page where a person just made their purchase. So we're going to go to our page builder, and once again we're going to create a page and we're going to use an existing template. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to the area where we have thank you pages. Now this thank you page should give you the ability to deliver links and to deliver information. And typically what you're going to want to do is to also do an explanation video showing people how to access what it is that they have purchased. Now we can see here in these templates that there is one template that has a video attached to it. However, any sales page template that you're going to be purchasing, it will give you the ability to add in a video. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose one of these pages, and it really doesn't matter which one it is. It'll be according to our preference and according to the one that we feel is going to be easiest for us to brand. So we're going to click Use this template, and we're going to create a thank you page. Now in naming your page, you want to make sure that your URL is going to be something that someone cannot easily guess. So in some cases you're going to want to append this with some kind of additional numerical code or alphabetical code and then click Create Page. Now in this case what we're going to do is we're going to add in a space at the very top for a video. And however you're going to do this on your specific page builder is the way you're going to go about this. Now in Optimize Press, what we would do is we would add in a row, and then we would add in an element that would be a video. And for this video player, this would require us to put in here some kind of YouTube video if we already have it hosted there, or wherever we have the video hosted, we can place in there an embed code. Now just for the sake of this video, we're going to place in a YouTube video, and naturally if we placed a YouTube video in here, this YouTube video would be an unlisted video and one that would not be available to people on the YouTube platform. And so again, if we were going to do this within YouTube, we would want to make sure that where this says visibility, that this is going to say unlisted. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just grab the link. We can do that here. We can get the shareable link, then we can head back to our page builder. And we're going to place in the video in that area. And then we're probably not going to autoplay the video because we don't want to have it play every time someone comes back to the download page. However, we do want to indicate to the individual that this is a video that they want to watch first. We're going to insert the video. And what we would do here is we would place a headline here at the top that says watch this video first, or something to that effect. So basically now, as soon as the individual makes their payment, they're going to be brought to this page, and at the very top of the page we're going to have something here that says watch this video first. What we're also going to do here, just for the convenience of your customer, is we want to make sure that the place to get support is going to be visible. And so we're going to place that link here. Now on the download page, we want to make sure that all the information that an individual is going to need in order to get what they purchased is going to be here. In this case, we have a video. We're giving them the ability to download whatever content that they have purchased, whether it is PDF or video or whatever the content is. And then we also have some information on how to go about the download. So once we have determined that everything on this page is correct, we can go ahead and publish the page. And we're going to click Save and Continue. Now we really did not do anything here in terms of branding the page. Now that would be up to you in terms of how you wanted to do it. However, what we have here is we have a download page where we've given the individual everything they need in order to get started. Now we will be revisiting this download page once we create an upsell for this product. So for now, we're just going to click Save and Continue, and we want to make this page available where the individual is going to get their product. Welcome back. Now, in many cases, the individual that makes the purchase, you will have them automatically added to your email marketing list. However, that individual may not necessarily answer the email that they use for their payment. And so a good idea when you're going to try to make sure that you're closing up leaks in your funnel is to make sure that you give that individual an opportunity to opt into your email marketing list with a double opt-in system. And you can do that by right under your support area is to offer that individual something that incentivizes them to become part of your list. And you can typically do that inside of any template. What we're going to do here in Optimized Press is we're going to add in an opt-in box. And we're just going to choose one of the boxes inside of Optimized Press. We're going to make a promise to the individual. And we want to make sure that the promise that we're making them is relevant to the product that they just purchased. And once again, if you have a standard thank you page, you want to use it here because that's going to tell the individual to check their email. And if you're going to be using double opt-in, that's what you want the individual to do. So you can use the standard thank you page that was created earlier in this course. Now, in some cases, an individual will subscribe again even though they're already part of your list. And so what you want to do is you want to have that individual sent to a specific URL. Now, just for the sake of this video, we're going to write in here leadpages.com. However, you would send the individual to a relevant offer that you have. Now, once you've done that, you're going to click Insert. And you see the opt-in box that's going to be here. Now, the other element that we're going to be adding here to the download page will be a link to your upsell. However, we have not created the upsell page. And once we do create that upsell page, we will come back to this download page for your front end or entry product so that the individual will see the upsell offer and have a chance to purchase it. Welcome back. What we now need to do is we need to create another sales page. And we are doing this primarily to create an upsell offer. So what we're going to do is we're going to come down to the sales page, and assuming that you already know what you're going to do in terms of your copy, you're going to pick the most appropriate sales page and then write your copy. Now in this case, we're going to create a video page. So we're going to choose a primarily video content sales page. And then we're going to write in our page name. And what we're going to do here is click Create Page. Now what you're going to do is you're going to alter this sales page with your own copy. You're going to add in your own video, and then you're going to make sure that your buy button is going to be directed from the buy button inside of your sales page. What you're then going to want to do is you're going to want to click Save and Continue. Now there is one aspect of the sales funnel process that you're going to want to take note of. Now you're typically going to want to make sure that your upsell sales page is not going to be publicly available. And so that might mean that you may need to hide that sales page from the search engine, as well as making the URL so it's unguessable. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go inside of the page settings. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go inside of other scripts. Now Optimized Press has a specific series of steps that we need to take using it in order to hide a page from the search engines and discourage them from indexing a specific page. Now in order to find this method, what we did was we went to our search engine and we wrote in this search term, how to hide a sales page from the search engines, and then we wrote in the name of our page builder. Now you may need to do a search inside of your page builder. You may need to contact the support area for your specific sales page in order to do this. We're now going to use the search in order to find out how to do it. And you'll see here that OptimizePress has a support article that they make available, and they make that article available to everyone publicly. I'm going to click inside of that area. Now what you'll see here is that they expect that you're going to add 2 pieces of code to a specific place inside of your sales page area, in this case for the header, and then another piece of code inside of the header area. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this content. We're then going to head back to our sales page. We're going to create an entry inside of the header. We're then going to create this entry and then place our code inside of this dialog box. What we're now going to do is we're going to add in the second piece of code, and we're going to add in that code. We're now going to do inside of OptimizePress is we're going to make sure that it appears at the very beginning. So we're going to need to move it up. We're also going to move up the other piece of code. What we're now going to do is click Update for the code. Now inside of OptimizePress, one of the things we want to do is we want to make sure that the changes that we made do not break the page. So we're going to click Save and Continue. What we're then going to do is click View Public Link. And so we see now that this is not going to break the page, the changes that we made, so we can keep those coding pieces inside of our page. Now it's important to note that you are going to have different steps depending on how your sales page interacts with the search engines. And so you'll need to either seek this out using the search engines, or you'll need to seek this out with the creator of your sales page platform. So assuming that we've completed this process, we're now going to click Publish. Welcome back. Now once you have the method that you're going to use in order to hide your pages from the search engines, you're now going to want to make sure to hide your thank you pages and your delivery pages from the search engines. And you're going to undertake the same process that you learned when you were hiding your upsell page. And so in this case, if you were using OptimizePress, you would take these 2 pieces of code and you would place them in the settings of your thank you pages as well as your delivery page. We're going to take a look at the delivery page in particular, knowing still that we would do the same with our thank you pages. So we're going to go to our delivery page and we're going to edit our delivery page. And what we're going to do here is we're now going to hide this page from the search engines. And we're going to undertake the same process. We're going to go to our page settings. We're then going to go to our other scripts. Now, once again, this process is specific to OptimizePress. Your page builder will have a different process. You will need to undertake the same process that your page builder platform outlines to hide a page to discourage the search engines from indexing your page. So what we're now going to do is we're going to grab this code, we're going to copy it, and we're going to head back to our page settings. And as instructed, we're going to paste that code in our header area. We're going to add space for the other code, and we're going to grab that code from the directions. And we're going to grab it. We're then going to copy it, head back to our page. And we're going to place that code inside of the dialog box. We're then going to update the page. We're then going to republish the page. So what we've now done is we have discouraged the search engines from indexing our delivery page, and we've also made it difficult for other individuals to guess the page in order to get access to the content. Now, one way to keep from having to use this process is to make sure that this delivery page is guarded by some kind of membership plugin where the customer gets a login and password in order to access it. Welcome back. Now that we have an upsell page, we want to take that link and we want to add it every place where people are going to see the front end or the basic offer. and where they may not necessarily have seen this upsell offer. So what we're going to do here is we're going to get this link for the first page, and we're going to copy it. What we're then going to do is we're going to go to the thank you delivery page, and we're going to add that link to that page. So we're going to edit that page. And typically you want to make sure that it comes after the download. And so what we may do here is we may add in another space where we can add in a hyperlink or a button that says people can click this button in order to get the upsell. So we're going to give the button a title. And what we're going to do inside of Optimize Press is we're going to place the link here in this area. We're then going to click Insert. And we now have a button so that when the person comes to this page, if they don't necessarily see the upsell, they will have an opportunity to make a decision about the upsell by being shown a button. Now, another thing that you can do is to make sure that you place that same opportunity inside of any PDF or any place where you're going to have links in your downloaded product. So let's assume that what you're going to deliver here is going to be a PDF that is part of the product. You're now looking at Microsoft Word and assuming that the document that you are giving them is editable and created in Word. What you would do here is you would then create a hyperlink, and then what we're going to do is we're going to place the link to the download page. Once you have resaved the PDF, you'll then have a clickable link, and then once you have the link inside of your PDF, the person who gets that PDF will be able to click that link and then be taken to the page where they can see your upsell offer. Now you're now looking at Video Creator Camtasia Studio. And one of the things that you can do is that if you are going to be delivering some kind of video or even showing some kind of video, you can make sure that your link appears in the video to your upsell offer. And obviously, when you place this call out inside of your video, you're going to want to make sure that it appears in an area of the video that is relevant, or one where mentioning this will be in context with whatever else the video is discussing. Now this obviously means that when you create your presentation, or in some cases you create your video course, one of the things that you can do is to make sure that you create opportunities to mention the upsell or to create a context for the upsell. In other words, you want to give yourself an excuse to mention the upsell inside of your course and to mention it in the course. Welcome back. We are now inside of our chosen autoresponder because what we want to do is we want to create an automated campaign for the individuals that are going to become our customers when they purchase our front-end product. Now every autoresponder company is going to be a little different in how they treat some of these things that we are going to be discussing. However, the elements that we're going to be discussing are things that you are going to want to do for the maximization of your funnel. Now when we set up the list, one of the things that we're going to want to consider is whether or not to set up a single or double opt-in email. And in this case, since these are going to be customers that we're going to be adding, it's unlikely that they will go to their inbox and confirm because they'll get no reminder. So in this case, we are probably going to leave this as a single opt-in as these are verified as our customers. The only people that are going to get these emails that we are setting up are going to be our customers. Therefore, what we can do is we can leave the confirmation page as is, or we can change it. However, no one will actually be required to confirm. So we don't really care about this. We are going to leave this unticked to indexed in the search engines. And in most cases, our confirmation message we are going to leave in the default settings. So once we have created the list for our new customers, what we're going to want to do is we are going to go inside of this menu and we are going to create an auto response. And once again, this is going to work differently inside of every internet service provider. Now what we're going to do is make sure that when the individual makes a purchase, they're going to get an email immediately from our autoresponder. And so in the case of GetResponse, we're going to create a new email. Now what's most important about the email that we are creating here is that we are going to include, even in this email, an opportunity for the individuals to get our upsell. Now you're definitely going to make this a welcome email, and you're going to make sure they know where to get support, where they can get their download, and all of the other pertinent information. What we don't want to do is to miss an opportunity to present our upsell to individuals that are going to be motivated to open this email. So what we're going to do here is we're going to pick a place and we're going to leave our link. So we're going to hyperlink and we're going to place the URL for our upsell page inside of this email. And we're going to set up the email. And we will then save this email as we normally would. What will then happen is, as soon as the individual gets signed up to our product, they will also receive an email from us with an opportunity to purchase our upsell. Now it's important to note, in order for this process to work correctly, it's going to need to have our autoresponder connected to our shopping cart system so that a sale adds the buyer to our email system. Now you are now looking at the JVZoo affiliate platform. And in this case, the buy buttons and shopping cart come from JVZoo when you are using it. And the reason we want to look at this is because we have the opportunity to edit the custom receipt that every customer gets when they make a purchase. What we would be doing here is we would be adding in our upsell link to any custom receipt information that the customer will get by email, as well as any custom receipt that will be available to them. What you will also see here is that in the advanced settings for this particular affiliate network, the shopping cart allows you to do what we just discussed, and that is to add specific individuals that make a purchase to the GetResponse list that you have designated. This is actually a case where we'll have 3 opportunities to show the individual our upsell link: the custom receipt information, the email receipt information, and the autoresponder that the customer is added to when they make a purchase and then are added to our autoresponder. Welcome back. Now the simplest way for you to create an opportunity for a customer to purchase something from you would be to create a PayPal button. And once you are inside of your PayPal account, what you would do is you would click the area where you create a PayPal button. You then click Get Started. Now you have several opportunities available to you. For the sake of simplicity, we are going to choose a Buy Now button. Now the Buy Now button will require us to put in product information and price. Now if you are not selling inventory in this case, what you're going to do is skip down to Step 3. In Step 3, we will not allow the customer to change quantities. We will typically not allow the customers to add special instructions, nor will we need their shipping address. Now what's most important is this URL. We're going to have the customer taken to a specific URL when they finish the payment or the checkout process. Now in the case of making the purchase of the first product or front-end product, we want the individual taken direct to the upsell page. What that means then that this buy button will make it so that an individual makes the purchase and then they will then see your upsell offer. We'll then create the PayPal button. We'll then use the link inside of PayPal and we'll make this the link to the purchase button on the front end product. So we'll come back to the page and we'll change the button. And we will then click Insert. So now our purchase button now reflects the PayPal payment method that we have created. And as soon as the customer makes the purchase, they'll then be taken to our upsell page. Welcome back. What we now need to do is to create a download thank you delivery page for our upsell. And to do that, we are going to create a new page. And we're going to go back to our templates. And we can choose any thank you page or download page template. And we're going to choose one similar to the one that we chose last time. Now, depending on which kind of page builder you use, one thing you can do is you can clone the last page that you used for the front end page. So we're going to go to the page that we already created. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at that page and we're going to clone the page using a feature in Optimize Now, this is a feature that resides in most page builders. So we're going to click Clone Page. We're then going to look at the particular URL and we're going to make it so that it's not guessable. And we're going to save or update the page. And we're going to update the page. And we're going to use many of the same tools that we already have. Now, one thing that you want to do, if you haven't done so already, is you want to go into your page settings. And you want to make sure that the code that we use in order to hide the page is still visible for this download page also. And because it is in Optimize Press, we're going to continue. Once again, you do want to make sure that your page is hidden from the search engines and that the search engines are discouraged from indexing the page. Now, one other thing that we are going to do with this upsell page is we're going to want to make sure that we have the existing download. So we're actually going to leave one download intact. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a second download for the upsell content. And so that now we have two downloads for this upsell page. What we can take out is going to be the link to the upsell unless we have another upsell that we want to promote. In this case, we're going to take the upsell out. And what we're going to do is we're going to close this page. And we're going to update it. And so basically now what we have is we have an upsell page that we can use for our upsell button. Welcome back. We are now back inside of PayPal because what we need to do is we need to create a purchase button for the product that we are going to be selling as an upsell. And what we're going to do here is we're going to go inside of our PayPal buttons area. We're then going to get started. We're then going to click Buy Now. Once we've added in our pricing and all of our other information, we're going to skip forward to step 3. And what we're going to do here is we're going to click the URL where the buyers are going to be taken once they make the payment. And this is going to be the upsell thank you delivery page. So we're going to grab that upsell delivery page and copy the link. And we're going to add it to this dialog box. We're then going to click Create Button. We're then going to grab our email link and we're going to copy it. And what we're going to then do is we're going to head back to our upsell sales page so that we can add this link as the buy button. So where we have our buy button, we're going to add in that email link and click Insert. And we're going to add it a second time near the second buy button. Now, one of the things you'll notice about this upsell sales page is that there's a link here that says no thanks. And basically what we've done, if we open up this hyperlink, you'll see here that this is a clickable link where the person that comes to your page can click. If they decide not to take your offer, you're going to have a link that will take them directly to the thank you page for the first offer. Now, to do this, you are going to want to make sure that your page is not being indexed by the search engines and that it does not have a guessable URL. Welcome back. Now, one option that you have when you are going to have someone added to your email list through your opt-in page is you can have that individual shown directly to your sales page. So for example, when we did this initially in the course, the individual would type in their name and email address. They would then click Get Access. They would then be taken to this thank you page where the verbiage would tell them that they need to go and check their email box. Now, one other thing that we can do, of course, is we can make sure that this page is actually going to be a sales page. And to do that, we're going to go back to our opt-in page. We're then going to go to this thank you page, and we're going to take this thank you page out. And we're going to replace it with the first sales page. And we're then going to click Insert. And we're then going to save the new page. This time, when the individual comes to the page, what they're going to do is to put in their name and email address. And this time, they're going to click Get Instant Access. They're then going to be taken directly to the sales page. And basically, what you then have is you have a case where the individual is going to be shown your sales page one more time than we would have shown them otherwise. Now, one other thing to note is that if you have an exit redirect set up with this page and you have it set up as the same opt-in page, you may want to make this a different opt-in page with a different offer, if indeed it's going to be connected to your original opt-in page. Hello and welcome. Now, one of the most important processes that you're going to undertake is to make sure that once your customer opts in to your email marketing list, that you begin to relate to them using email. Now, in many cases, you'll have a choice between making sure that this person is going to get emails that come automatically and being able to email this person every day using what's called a newsletter function. And in most autoresponder systems, there is an email function that allows for what's called a broadcast email. And this generally means that you're going to write the email from scratch once every day or however often you choose to send email newsletters to your customers. However, one system that you can undertake is to send your customers a series of emails once they're new to your list. And you're typically going to do this inside of your email marketing by using what's called an autoresponder. Now, this is going to be called something different inside every email service provider. What you're going to do is you're going to create the messaging. And in the case of the autoresponder that we are working inside, which is GetResponse, what you would do is you would first create a message that's going to go out to your customer one day after the initial email that they receive. And you'll typically be given the opportunity to set it up so that the person will get the emails at about the same time every day at the time at which they were signed up in the first place. And so in this case, what we would do is we would create the first automated email. Now, the system will give you the option of being able to send a specific template that typically has graphics, or you can send a plain email. So what you're going to do in this case is you're going to write out your email and you're going to set it up so that the individual is going to get this email one day after they received your initial email. And what you'll do inside of your own system is you'll save and publish this first email. And you'll then have one email set up to go out any day of the week based on when the individual signs up. You can then create another automated email. And again, what you're going to do is you're going to send it so that the individual is going to get the email about the same time they signed up. And you'll be creating another email. And then you'll use your autoresponder system to save this email as email number 2. And you'll then save and publish this email. You'll then do this as many times as you'd like to send the email, as well as to expose the individual to the offer that you're trying to show them. So you can have it as many days as you like to have. In some cases, you may even want to have it so the individual might receive 2 emails in a specific day. Now, it may be that you want to write a broadcast email to a specific part of your email marketing list, but you don't want to have that broadcast sent to the individuals that are going to be part of your sequence. You want those individuals to be getting some kind of specific email. That means then that you're going to want to maintain a specific list that does not have contacts in it in order to have the individuals, when they complete their sequence, to be added to the list that you're going to broadcast to on a daily basis. Now, to do that, you're going to need to undertake your email service provider's automation section. And in most cases, your autoresponder will have a system that will allow you to automate certain processes. Now we're going to use the GetResponse system, but you can replicate this in systems such as ActiveCampaign, Aweber, and others. What we're going to do is we're going to create a workflow. And we're going to build a simple workflow from scratch. We're going to click Start Now. Now we're going to use the simplest method. And basically we want our automation to be initiated when an individual is sent a specific message. In particular, when an individual is sent the last message in the sequence that we have. So in GetResponse, we're simply going to start the trigger when a specific autoresponder message is sent. So we're going to select Autoresponder. We're then going to select a specific autoresponder message. So we're now going to select a specific message, and we're going to select the last message in our series. So basically what we have now is we have a trigger set so that when the person is sent a specific message, we're going to have a certain action now taking place. So when an individual is sent that message, what we're now going to do is we're going to have that individual moved to a specific list. So we're going to drag that part of the automation into our workflow. So what we're going to do now is we're going to say that when the individual is sent this last message in a specific area, we're going to have them moved to a specific list. Now in this case, GetResponse is asking for an autoresponder cycle, but we don't need to worry about this because we don't have any auto-responsive messages inside of this list that we want the individual moved to. So what we're going to do is we're going to say that when an individual is sent this particular message, we're going to have them moved to a specific list. This is a very simple automation. So now what we have is that when an individual is completed with our series as a new subscriber, we're then going to have that person automatically moved to the email list where we send messages on a daily basis using a broadcast email. Now we want to cover the instance where we may decide to change this arrangement, but we still want to be specific to the individuals that have finished the sequence. So what we would do in this case is we would also have this individual tagged in some way. So in a very simple automation, what we're going to do is we're going to have the individuals that have been moved to the list to be signed a specific tag. So what we're going to do here is we're going to then make changes to this area. What we're going to do is we're going to have the individual assigned to a specific tag. And what we're going to do here is we're going to create the tag. And basically what we're now saying now is that once the individual has completed the sequence and they have been moved, we're going to have them assigned to a specific tag in our autoresponder. And basically what we can do is we can have it so that if we want to come back later and only work with those individuals that have completed the sequence, we can now use the tag inside of our automations sequence. Now this is not designed to be a full-blown tutorial on using automations or using GetResponse. We have done a very simple automation which you should be able to replicate inside of your own autoresponder or email service provider. What we can also do is create another simple automation. So for example, we can build another automation from scratch. And we can make it so that when an individual opens a specific message, we can follow that up with another action. So let's assume that the individual that is part of our sequence opens a specific message. So what we can do is we can create a very simple automation that happens when an individual opens a specific message. Now in GetResponse, it defaults to a newsletter. But what we can actually do is we can make it so that it's going to be an autoresponder message. So that when a specific autoresponder is opened, we can then undertake some action. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this a specific autoresponder. So we're going to change this to specific. What we're now going to do is we're going to select a specific message. So what we've done is we've chosen an email that we're going to designate as the trigger. And basically what we're saying is we want to undertake some kind of action when this specific email is going to be opened. Now, typically inside of GetResponse, what we can do is we can give this a specific time period. So for example, we can say that an individual that opens within a day is extremely interested, and so we want to undertake some kind of action for this specific individual. Or we can make it so that it is indefinite, and we can control that time period here inside of this area. So what we're going to do here is we're going to leave this at 1 day. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to specific elements. So in this case, what we can do is we can state that we're going to send this individual a specific message. And what we're going to do here is we're going to select a specific message. We can select a previous newsletter or a specific autoresponder. Once again, what we can do is we can select an autoresponder message. So what we're going to now do is that when an individual opens the message, we're going to have that individual sent a specific message that we've already written and is already stored inside of GetResponse. What we can also do is have this individual tagged specifically. And so we can assign this individual a specific tag. And we can then connect the automation. And we can then save and publish the automation. So basically what we have is that when an individual opens a specific message, we can then have that individual sent another message only to the individuals that have opened the message, and then we can have this individual tagged specifically. And so basically what we're doing is we're indicating to the individuals that have opted into our list before we begin sending them broadcast emails that we want them to see a specific series of messages and a specific series of offers, and we want them to see them in a specific order. And we can do that using specific simple automations. Now in this case, let's assume then that what the individual does is they do not open this autoresponder message. So what we want to do is we want to have this individual that doesn't open this email sent a specific message. And so in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to pull in another message. And we're going to select that specific message. And in this case, we're going to send them a specific autoresponder message. And so what we're going to do is we're going to come back to this point, and we're then going to connect this bar to this area. And basically what we're saying is that when this individual does not open this email, we want to have them sent a specific message that we already have stored inside of GetResponse. Of course, we can write the email message brand new that we want to have this individual sent. And what we also want to do is we want to have this individual tagged. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag in this specific tag. We're going to assign a specific tag. And we're going to connect these automations. And finally, in order to make use of these specific tags, you can create another simple automation. So in this case, we're going to create another automation from scratch. And so to do that, we're going to start the trigger process from the point at which an individual is tagged. And so basically, if an individual is tagged a specific tag, what we're going to do is we're going to select that tag here. We're then going to have this individual added to a specific list automatically. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this individual to a specific list. So we're going to connect these two automations. So what we're then going to do is we're going to select the specific list. Now we don't want this individual added to any autoresponders as a result of being on this list, even if there are any here. What we want to do is we want to have only the individuals that we have designated with a specific tag to be broadcast to. So when we are creating a specific broadcast email, we are only going to select the list that we have just created for these specific tags. And basically what we can now do is we can send specific messages only to the individuals that have taken specific actions with the emails that we have in our autoresponder system. So once again, we have created very simple automations to demonstrate what you can do automatically when an individual is going to be opted into your list so that you can automate specific emails to them, maximizing the number of times that they are going to see a specific offer that you have. Welcome back. We're going to look at the funnel creation process using affiliate network WarriorPlus. Now, what we would be using WarriorPlus in place of would be a PayPal button. So our goal in this process is to both create a funnel, a vertical one, and then to create buy buttons for our upsell and downsell pages. The process starts with creating an offer inside of WarriorPlus. Now, to start the process inside of WarriorPlus, we are required to place in our sales page URL. So in this case, we would generally get the sales page that we have already created. But one thing we want to assume is that we may want to leave the buy button in place that's already there from using PayPal. So in that case, we're going to need to use the same sales page, yet we're going to need a different URL. So inside of our WordPress page, what we're going to do is we're going to use a feature that OptimizePress has. Typically, you're going to have the same feature inside of any page building software. We are going to clone this page. Now, when we clone this page, we do have control over what the URL is going to be. So in this case, we're going to edit this and we're going to make it so that we designate it to work with WarriorPlus. Now, we can change this to any URL that we want it to be. We're just going to change it to one that indicates WarriorPlus. We're then going to update this page in WordPress. Once we do that, we now have a URL. We're going to then copy this link and head back to our WarriorPlus offer. So now what we're going to do is we're going to place our sales page URL. We're then going to click Create. Now, if we're going to have affiliates to promote our product, we're going to indicate that here. If we're going to be using coupons, we can indicate that here. But for the sake of this tutorial process, we are going to forego these two elements and then create the offer. What we have now is our main page. What we want to do now is we want to make sure that there is going to be an upsell offer. So inside of WarriorPlus, what we're going to do is we're going to create another page, and this is going to be an offer for our upsell. So we're going to name the page, and then we're going to need the upsell URL. What we're going to need to do is we're going to need to clone this upsell sales page. And once again, we're going to change the URL. And once again, you can change this name to whatever you want. We're just changing it so that we know it's for WarriorPlus. Once we update the page, we're going to take this URL and head back to WarriorPlus. And we're going to add in this sales page, and we're going to click Save. Now, when we are creating this offer in WarriorPlus, WarriorPlus requires that we have created a product inside of their system. So if you have an existing product already created inside of WarriorPlus, you're going to have that product added to this first page in the offer for WarriorPlus. Now we're going to need to create a product for our basic or front-end product. We're going to write in all of the identifying information for this product. Now what's important for WarriorPlus is that we actually have our access URL. And basically, this is going to be our thank you page. And we're going to put that thank you page in two places. We're going to put that thank you page inside of this area for the access URL, as well as the admin access information. Now in this case, we don't need to clone the page, but we do need to get the link for our thank you page. And we're going to place that URL here in the dialog box. Now one important aspect of this process is going to be we're going to want an individual added to a specific list when they purchase our product, and WarriorPlus can do that for us. So what we're going to do here is we're going to click New Connection. We're going to select and add a service, and we're going to add on our GetResponse autoresponder. We're going to select a specific list. And we're going to click Save. We're now going to save this product. What we're going to do now is we're going to add in the product that we just created to this page. So we're now going to come back and click Add a Product. And the product that we just created is now ready for our front-end offer. What we now need to do is we need to walk through the same process for our upsell offer. What we now need to do is we need to get our thank you page for our upsell. So we're now going to grab the URL, we're going to copy it, and we're now going to head back to our WarriorPlus account. And we're now going to place our access URL. Now in this case, we can choose to have this individual added to a separate list in our autoresponder, or we can choose just to allow them to be added to the front-end offer. And that's what we're going to do in this case. We're going to click Save. What we can now do is add that product to our back-end offer. What we now need to do inside of WarriorPlus is we need to indicate that this upsell is actually our upsell. So we can click Add Upsell. We can then designate this as our upsell page. We can then click Save. And you'll notice now that we have a funnel. Once the individual has purchased the first or front-end offer, they will then be directed to the upsell offer. Now the thing that makes all of this work on our sales pages will be our actual buy button. And so to do that, the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to get the buy button code. And we're then going to click Get Code. What we're now going to do is we're going to create our buy button. Now in this case, we're going to create a Buy Now button. We're going to create a specific kind of button. And we're going to make for a transparent background. We're going to choose to take out the credit card logos. And we're going to choose not to show the price on our button, even though we have all of these options. What we're now going to do is we're going to place our cursor inside the dialog box. We're then going to right click and copy the code. What we're now going to do is to head to our cloned sales page. So we're going to choose the one that we cloned. In that case, it's going to be the one with WP. We're going to click and edit the page. We're then going to go to where our button is, and we're going to change out that button in Optimize Press. We're going to add in a center code. We're then going to paste in our code, and we're then going to add a closing code. We're then going to click Insert. And our buy button is now at the top of the page. We're going to do the same thing at the bottom of the page where the other buy button is. So we're going to go to the other buy button. We're then going to take out the buy button. We're going to add in HTML code. We're now going to place our center code. We're going to paste in our code. We're going to add in our closing code. We're then going to click Insert. And our Buy Now button is now in place. We're going to save our page. We can now close out this code. We now need to do the same thing for the upsell. To do that, we're going to get the upsell page code. We're going to make sure that our button is going to be much the same as the other one was. And we're now going to get the code. And we're going to copy the code. And we're going to find the upsell page that we cloned. In this case, that's going to be this one. We're going to edit the page. We're going to find the place where the button is supposed to be. We're going to take out the existing button. We're going to add in our code. We're going to add in a center code. We're going to paste our code. We're going to add in a closing code. Our code is now in place. We're going to go down to the bottom, and we're going to add in the code again. We're now going to move this code, and we're going to add in our HTML code again with a center code. We're then going to add in the code. We're then going to click Insert. We can now save our page. Now what we need to do now is we need to make sure that when the individual is taken to the upsell page and they decide not to make the purchase, that they can click a link and then be taken to their purchase. And that allowance is made for in WarriorPlus. What we can do in WarriorPlus is we can get the no thanks link and we're going to copy the code. And we're going to go inside of our page. We're going to go to our no thanks link. And we're going to add in the code. We're going to need to take out everything except the URL. And we're then going to click Insert. And we're going to do the same thing at the end of the page. Once we do that, we're then going to click Save and Continue. Now, one of the things that we have set up on our sales page is an exit redirect. If we want to track the specific redirects that come as a result of the individuals coming to this page with this offer, we can do that by creating an offer with our opt-in page. And to do that, we're going to create a new page. And this page is going to be our exit redirect. We're going to give this page a name. Now what we'll need for this page is we're going to need a sales page URL. What we're going to do for this page is we're going to clone our opt-in page. And like the other pages, we are going to indicate that this is part of our WarriorPlus system. Now again, this is only for our notation. You can make this URL whatever you want it to be. What we're now going to do is we're going to click View Page, and we're going to copy the link. And we're going to make this our sales page URL. We're then going to click Save. We need to create a specific product. We're going to click Add Product. We're now going to create that new product. We're going to place an access URL. In this case, it's going to be the thank you page for our opt-in. So what we're going to do now is we're going to clone our thank you page. We're going to make it so that this page is associated with our WarriorPlus system. We're now going to take a look at this page. And if we look at editing this page, if you recall, you'll notice here that this is our Check Your Email Now page, which is still appropriate, but what we also need to do is we now need to also use this page to deliver what the individual opted in for. So what we're going to do here is we're going to add in an area where the individual can also download their content. So what we've added now is a download page as well as a page indicating that the individual needs to check their email now. Now, if you don't have a double opt-in email, and in many cases you won't have one here, you can then take out the area that says check your email. So we're now going to save our thank you page. We're now going to grab our thank you page, and we're going to copy it and head back to our WarriorPlus account. We're now going to add in the access URL. We're going to change this now to a free downloaded product. And what we want to do is to have this individual added to a specific list. So we're going to create a new connection to our GetResponse Autoresponder and have the individual added to a specific list. Once we've done that with this product, we can then click Save. What we're now going to do inside of this product is we're going to add the product that we just created. We're now going to have this free product inside of our offer, but we're not going to have it connected to our funnel. What we're now going to do is we're going to get the code, and we're going to make the button similar to the others. What we're now going to do is we're going to change this to free download, and we're going to copy the code. We're now going to go to the opt-in page that we cloned. In this case, we're going to edit this page, and we're now going to change our opt-in so that we now have our button. And what we're now going to do is we're going to get rid of the opt-in, and we're going to resave the page. Now we have a brand new page. What we're now going to do is we're going to copy this URL. What we're now going to do is we're going to go inside the settings of our page. And what we will then do is we're going to go inside of our page settings. We're then going to use our exit redirect. We're then going to place a specific exit redirect, and the exit redirect is now going to be to the page that we just created. We will now click Update, and we will now save and close. So now when the individual comes to our page and they leave once they decide not to buy, they're then going to be given a redirect option. And the redirect will then take them to our free download page. So basically what we've now done is we've now created a system where we have also captured the opt-in using our WarriorPlus system. Welcome back. Now if you choose to use an affiliate network like WarriorPlus, one of the things you can do is you can add in a webinar to your funnel. And you can do that at the beginning of the process. We are now inside of a WarriorPlus product, but in order to execute the webinar for a pre-launch, we would need to go inside of the offer that we created. And basically, in opening up the offer, what we would do is to come down to the area prior to the launch. We'll be looking inside of the area in WarriorPlus for a pre-launch. Now there are a couple of ways to do a pre-launch inside of WarriorPlus. We can make it so that, of course, there is no pre-launch, or we can make it so that there is a simple redirect. Now the reason that you would do this is so that the affiliates can actually send traffic to your webinar prior to your launch and still be credited for all of the people that they send to your webinar. So in this case, we don't need an integration from our webinar system. All we really need is a place for individuals to register for our webinar. You're now looking at the inside of GoToWebinar. And what we would do in this case is we would set up the webinar according to the parameters that we want. Once the webinar is scheduled, we would then get the share link. We would then copy the registration link. We would then head back to our WordPress website or whatever website page builder you are using. What we would then do is to come back and create a webinar page. And in this case, we can come back to create a new page in our page builder. Now in the case of Optimized Press, there are specific pages for your webinar. And so in this case, we can choose a specific webinar page. What we're now going to do is we're going to create the page. What we're going to do here now is we're going to add in the link to the webinar at this webinar button. We're going to add in the URL. We're then going to click Insert. We're then going to save our page. What we're now going to do is we're going to get our completed page. We will then go to the area. We will then copy the link. And we will then head back to our WarriorPlus account. What we're now going to do is we're going to add the redirect URL, and then we're going to save the offer. Now prior to the launch time, individuals will see the webinar page. However, after the launch period, individuals will then be directed to the sales page in order to purchase the product. Now there are a few wrinkles in the process that we want to iron out in terms of our funnel. Now if an individual comes to this page and they're not a part of our list, they will be registering for the webinar. However, they will not be part of our email marketing list. And there are a few things that we can do in order to encourage them to become part of our list. One of the things that we can do inside of GoToWebinar and inside of most webinar systems is that we can use the custom link in order to create a custom confirmation page. And in this case, that is what we're going to do. After an individual registers for the webinar, we can have them sent directly to our opt-in page. So in this case, we can come back to our WordPress website. We can grab our opt-in link. We can head back to our GoToWebinar page. And we can add this to our link. We can then save the custom link. Now that does leave part of the process to chance. One of the things that we can do is during the registration process is we can have the individual auto added to our email marketing list. And we can do that by using third-party cloud-based connector Zapier. Now you will need to have a paid account in order to execute this process. What we're going to do is we're going to make a specific Zap. So we're going to click Create a Zap. We're going to select GoToWebinar as our trigger application. Now, if you'll notice here, it says that GoToWebinar is a premium application. That means then that you're not going to be able to do this with a free account. We're going to now click GoToWebinar. When you get to this page, you're going to need to choose a trigger event. And the trigger event is going to be that an individual has registered for our webinar. What we're going to do now is we're going to click Continue. Now in this video, our GoToWebinar account is already connected to our Zapier account. If that is not the case for you, what you'll need to do is you'll need to connect your GoToWebinar account to your Zapier account. That means then that you're going to need to click this link that says Add a New Account. And when you do this, you'll want to be logged into your GoToWebinar account while you undertake this process in the same browser you're working with for your Zapier account. Once you've done that, you will then click Continue. What we need to do now is we need to choose the specific webinar that we're going to be working with. And we're going to select the webinar. Once we've done that, we're then going to click Continue. Now Zapier is going to need to have a test in order to make sure that the connection is working. So if you haven't done so already, you're going to need to register for your own webinar so that you'll have a test connection inside of the webinar for Zapier to use in order to test. What you're now going to do is you'll then click Register. You're going to want to go back one step, and you're going to click Continue again. And then what you're going to do is you're going to click Continue again. And then Zapier is going to look for a registrant. You're then going to click Test Trigger. And you should see that Zapier has found a registrant in order to work with. That'll typically be the one that you just created. You'll then click Continue. What you're now going to do is you're going to select your email autoresponder. Because what we want to do is we want to make it so that when an individual registers for our webinar, we want them added to our email marketing list. So what we're going to do is we're going to write in our autoresponder. And then we're going to choose the action that we want. And basically what we want to do is we want to add a contact. So we're now going to click Continue. Now once again, if you have not added your GetResponse account or your Autoresponder account, you're going to need to add it at this point. Now for the sake of this video, we are going to go forward with our GetResponse account and then click Continue. What's happening now is Zapier is looking inside of your Autoresponder account. So you can now go to Zapier and you can choose a specific list from within your Autoresponder account. What we're now going to do is place our cursor inside and we're going to select and map the email. Once we've done that, we're then going to go to the next required field, which is the name. We're going to place our cursor inside and we're going to map out the name. What we're now going to do is click Continue. What we now want to do is we want to test and continue. And it says now that Zapier has sent the test connection to our GetResponse account. And you should see your email address inside of your list. So basically now all we need to do is to turn on this Zap. And what we now have is we now have it so that when an individual registers for our webinar, they're then going to be added to our GetResponse list. What happens next really depends on where you are in the process. What we need to do is to make sure that the individuals that actually attend the webinar or the individuals that signed up for the webinar and didn't attend, that they get the replay of the webinar. So we're going to come back to our page builder, and what we're going to do is we're going to set up a webinar replay page. Now in Optimized Press, we can create a new page. And basically what we can do is we can create a video page. And what we're going to do here is use this as a video page, and we're going to call this page Video Replay. And we're then going to create the page. And what we want with this page is for the individual to watch the webinar replay and then have the option of making the purchase once they have watched the webinar. So what we're going to do here is we're going to rid ourselves of this button. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get the button code for our sales page. So we're going to come back to our offer. We're going to grab the button code, and we're going to customize the code so that the individual can make a purchase. And we're going to grab the code and copy it. And what we're going to do is we're going to add in the area for our code. And we're going to add in a center code and then the button code. We're then going to click Insert. We can now publish our page. And our replay page is now ready. Now obviously this page will not be relevant until we've already had our launch webinar. So what we will eventually need to do is to get our launch webinar so that we can place it inside of our page. So that means then that we can come inside of our GoToWebinar account and we can then download the webinar as a video. So we're going to click Download. So what you'll then do is you'll log into your video host. You can use YouTube, you can use Vimeo, whichever host that you currently use. What you're going to do here is you're then going to upload your video. And we're going to edit a few settings, and we're going to make this video private now that we've uploaded. We're now going to edit some settings. And this may be entirely different inside of your video host. What we're going to do is we're going to turn off all of the identifying settings. And once we have it, you're going to go to your video host and you're going to grab your embed code and copy it. What we're then going to do in the code in the page, we're then going to place in our embed code, and we're going to add it in this area, and we'll then click Insert. Now if the player that you're using has an autoplay feature, what you can do is you can have your video autoplay. So in this case, if we were using Vimeo, we could then place in an autoplay code. Once you do that, you can then click Insert. And we can save and close the replay. What we're now going to do is we're going to grab our replay link. And we're now going to create a series of messages for the individuals that have been on the webinar and need to see the replay. And inside of our message or series of messages, we are then going to have our replay link. And what we want to have is a series of messages going to the individuals that have signed up for the webinar. But what we are also going to want to do is we do not want individuals that have already made the purchase to continue to get these emails about the webinar. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go into this area and we're going to create a simple automation. So we are going to make the trigger for the automation that an individual is subscribed to a specific list. Now assuming that this list is the one that the individuals will be added to if they make a purchase inside of WarriorPlus, we want this to be the trigger. So we're basically telling GetResponse is we want to take some kind of action if it sees that an individual is going to be assigned to the list that is designated for our after purchase. What we're then going to do is we're going to add a specific action. And what we want is the individual to be removed. So we're going to drag the removal into the workflow. We're then going to specify where we want the individual removed from. We want the individual removed from the webinar automation list. And what we're going to do now is we're then going to connect this automation. And basically what we have now is we have it so that the individuals that have signed up for the webinar will continue to get the replay shown to them as long as we have messages until they're removed from that list. And they'll be removed from that list if they're added to a list that indicates that they have purchased the product. Now in some cases, what you may want to do then with a webinar is you may want to have a webinar once the individual has made their purchase. That is another way that you might be able to present other offers to individuals that have made the purchase that maybe did not take you up on the upsell. So in that case, what you're going to do is you're going to make sure that you're working with the first or the front end product. And to do that, we're going to go into this first product. And what we can do is we can come to this integrations area inside of WarriorPlus. And what we can do is we can add a new connection. Now if we select GoToWebinar, we can have the individual added to this specific GoToWebinar account that we are actually part of. Now what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to set an after purchase webinar. And we're going to save this as part of our webinars. And what we're going to do once we have connected our GoToWebinar account, we're going to find our webinar inside and connect it to our WarriorPlus account. And basically what we're saying now is that when an individual makes the purchase, we want them automatically added to the after purchase webinar. So we're then going to click Save. Now what you can assume is that every individual that makes a purchase is going to be added to this webinar, or that they're going to stay subscribed so that they can attend. However, we do have access to some individuals that will be added to our Get Response list. And so what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to follow up with the individuals that are going to be part of this Get Response list with a page where they can sign up for the webinar in case they did not get the link. So to do that, we're going to come back to our page builder and we're going to create another page. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to create a sign up page for our webinar. And we can choose any page. So what we're now going to do is we're going to create page. Now this webinar does need to be private. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go into our page settings and we're then going to go into our other scripts. And you're going to notice that there is some custom coding here. However, we do want to make sure that we are adding in code to make sure that we are discouraging the search engines from indexing this page. So in this case, we're going to use the optimize press search to hide a page from the search engine. Now if your page builder has specific instructions, you're going to want to follow those instructions. The instructions that you're seeing will only work for optimize press reliably, even though you can try this code. Now what we're going to do is we're going to copy both sets of code and we're going to place it in our page settings. And we're going to move these up in the process. Once we've done that, we're then going to click Update. What we're then going to do is we're going to set up our webinar registration button. And we're going to place the link. We're then going to click Insert. We're then going to save our page. We now have a webinar registration page. So now that we know that page is hidden from the search engines, we are going to copy the link and we're going to head to our autoresponder. Now we want to make sure that the follow-up begins prior to the webinar. So we're going to create a new message and we're going to make sure that the individuals will see the sign-up page in an automated webinar scheduled to arrive in their inbox prior to the actual date of the webinar. Now after the date of the webinar, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to download the webinar. And once we've hosted that webinar, we're basically going to repeat the process of doing a webinar replay page. Now what we can do here is we can clone our page. And once again, because this is going to be for buyers only, we're going to want to go into our page settings. And we're going to want to go into our other scripts, and we're going to want to make sure that we're adding in our appropriate code in order to hide this page from the search engines so that individuals that did not purchase the product will not find it on the internet. We'll then need to update the page. Now, if we have updated the webinar, one of the things we're going to need to do is we're going to need to take out the button for the purchase that has already been made, since this is a page that we cloned. So we're going to delete that button. And what we're now going to do is we're going to get the Upsell button. So what we're going to do here is we're going to grab the code for the Upsell button. We're going to customize it. We're going to copy it. And we're now going to head back to our WordPress page. And we're going to add that Upsell button to this page for the individuals that are watching the post-purchase webinar. So we're then going to save and close our page. We're then going to copy our webinar replay page. What we're then going to do is we're going to set up an email message that will come after the date of the webinar. So in this case, we're going to either edit or create a new message. And this time, we're going to add in the webinar for the post-purchase. And we have now created a follow-up for the individuals that have attended the webinar but did not have a chance to see the actual webinar. And that is the last step in this process. Now you can make all the same connections using JVZoo as you did with WarriorPlus. For example, we are now looking at the JVZoo integrations inside of Zapier. And if we were to go and connect Zapier to JVZoo, and we were to choose the obvious trigger, which would be a new sale in JVZoo, and then click Continue, you'll see here that you are then able to add a JVZoo account. And so what you would do here is you would then click Add a new account. Zapier is then going to ask you for a JVZoo API key. From within your JVZoo account, you're going to go to this integrations area. And what you're then going to do is you're going to click on API Applications. You're then going to click the Create a New App button, and you're going to name the application for inside of your JVZoo account. This is the number that you're going to take back to your Zapier account. You're going to click Save API App, and then you're going to take the number you're given and go back to Zapier. And you're then going to add your API key in this dialog box. Zapier will then be able to talk to your JVZoo account using all of the same features that we demonstrated with the WarriorPlus button. JVZoo also has direct integration with a number of autoresponders. You'll see here Aweber, GetResponse, MailVO, Market Hero, and others. In terms of your after-sale webinar, what you do is you come to your product creation screen, and what you'll then need to do is you'll then need to integrate with your GoToWebinar here from this link. What you're then going to do is you're then going to click to authorize GoToWebinar. Now, before you start this process, you're going to want to be logged in to your GoToWebinar account. GoToWebinar will ask you to allow JVZoo to connect. You'll then notice that your GoToWebinar account is then authorized to use with your JVZoo account. Then if you come back to your product creation screen and you go back to your webinar area, you're then going to see that you're going to be able to add in your specific webinars that you have inside of GoToWebinar. However, if we had a new sale in Zoom, we can also connect to a different webinar system. So for example, if we were to click Continue, we can then choose a specific product. We could then decide that what we want to do is we want to connect to Zoom as a webinar system. Now obviously what we need to do is we need to choose a specific action inside of Zoom. With every sale, we're going to create a webinar registrant and click Continue. We'll then need to make sure that our Zoom account is going to be connected. But first, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to make sure that we have a webinar available. We're then going to make sure that our Zoom account is added. We're then going to choose our webinar. We're then going to map out the other elements. We'll then send our test registrant to Zoom, and we can then turn on our Zap. So basically, we can do all of the same things inside of JVZoo that we could inside of WarriorPlus, including creating a Zoom webinar. Welcome back. Now, there are a few settings that you're going to want to be aware of if you do choose to use Zoom as your webinar system. In particular, you're going to want to pay attention to your recording settings and whether you're going to have and allow individuals to record your webinar locally. You're also going to want to be aware of whether you're going to have a cloud recording. And this is going to be important because with your cloud recording, you are then going to be able to download that recording and then add it to your replay page. If you have both of these enabled, you will have a recording that will be available whether someone has it for a local recording or whether you have it for the cloud recording. The other setting you're going to want to be aware of in order to integrate your webinars with Zapier is that you're going to need to have registration required for your webinars. It's also important to note that the only thing you're going to be able to integrate with your Zapier account, if you're going to use Zoom, is going to be if you have webinars enabled. Zapier will not work properly if you have meetings enabled but you do not have webinars. So again, if you're going to have your webinar system working with Zapier so that you can connect it to either your affiliate networks or some of the other systems that you are using for your funnel, you do need to have webinars enabled in your account. In closing, if we were trying to add a post-sale webinar using Zoom to our WarriorPlus connection, you'll find that there is no direct connection to Zoom. And that means then if we're going to have a post-sale webinar, we're going to need to use Zapier in order to connect with WarriorPlus. So to do that, we're going to go to this link inside of our service area where we're connecting to our service in WarriorPlus. We're then going to click Zapier. This will take you to a WarriorPlus interface. What we're going to do is we're going to name this as the integration that we're going to be creating. In this case, we're going to create a Zoom integration. We're then going to click Save. We're then going to need to click back on the integration once we've created it, and there's a link inside of WarriorPlus that we're going to need to click in order to get access to the Zapier connection with WarriorPlus. Now once we have the connection, we're going to choose a specific trigger event. So we're going to go to our drop-down menu, and we are then going to use a new sale. WarriorPlus also has available to it a pre-launch lead as well as a new affiliate request. What we're going to do is we're going to use a new sale. We're then going to click Continue. We're then going to add our new account. We're then going to need to go back to our WarriorPlus account in order to get the API key. We're then going to place that API key here in this dialog box. We're then going to click Continue. What we're then going to do is click Continue. We're then going to choose a specific product. Once we've chosen the parameters, we're then going to click Continue. What we're now going to do is we're going to add an action step. And we're going to place in to the dialog box the application that we want to open, and in this case it's going to be Zoom. And we're going to select Zoom. We're going to create a webinar registrant and then click Continue. Once we have enabled our Zoom account, we can then choose a specific webinar. We can then map an email and first name. Once we do that, we can then click Continue. And once we've established our test, we can then click this button to turn on our Zap. And basically what we have now done is we have created a connection between Zoom and the purchase of our product so that an individual, when they make a purchase will be automatically added to our Zoom webinar. Now remember, one of the other things that we can do inside of WarriorPlus is we can have our trigger event to be a pre-launch lead. Now if your pre-launch is going to work correctly, your offer will need to be open, you will need to have established a start date, and it will need to be before that start date with individuals coming to your page and becoming leads. In conclusion, in looking at more complex processes, we chose not to use shopping carts, but to use affiliate networks which have an integrated shopping cart. We could have done the same process using shopping carts such as One Shopping Cart, Thrivecart, or SamCart, and there are certainly more shopping carts available that we could have looked at in order to execute all of the same processes. And even though Zapier does make some connections, you'll want to be careful about assuming that your connection will work with this third-party service. When it's possible, you always want to integrate directly and not through a third-party service. You've also seen how crucial automations with email are to the process. And so you'll want to make sure that any email system that you're using does have automations available to it, even if you choose not to exercise this function at the present time. Having it available to you will help you to maximize the number of times that an individual will see the offer that you want, as well as maximizing the number of times that you'll have leads available to you. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another process or another course.